Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the 1952 Chevy Styleline again. Back on that, we are working on the front fenders today, and hopefully we can work on getting some of those dents and rust spots taken care of. So, gotta get some stuff cleaned up and I'll be right back. Alrighty, we are back, and if you're returning, thank you very much for your support. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button below, hit the post notification bell, get notified whenever we put out new content, typically every Saturday morning. Now, as I said, we're working on the 52 Chevy. We've got the fenders up here, and we were working on the rear rockers the last session here. We'll get back to those as well. Just lots of work to do. If you were following that 72 Challenger project, we started working on those front fenders. But the driver's side one, I need a new patch panel for the front. The one I got was not stamped right. It's all kittywampus and not lining up. And the passenger fender needs to be put on the car so I can pull out some dents and get that lined up. But to do that, I've got to take off the inner fender on the passenger side. But to do that, I've got to take out the engine. So, yeah, we're going to work on the 52. So we went ahead in a previous video and got the sandblasted off, and I knew I had a dent or a scratch in here, and I knew I had one up here too, and there's one up here. Turn on this other light, see if that helps us out. Look at that, there we go. Now we can see all of our dents down in here. And this side does have some rust down here. I saw that when I took off the chrome strip, so we've got to get these off. We've got to get these off, and luckily the top doesn't look too bad. This looks like it's in pretty good shape overall. I did get hit with the sandblaster, so I'll need to go ahead and tidy that up a little bit. There's some random goo here that I'm not sure what it's from. But really the panel itself, it's solid, so that's a big bonus. And I'm gonna go ahead and get our body hammers, body dollies, whatever you want to call them, get those out and kind of go to town on these dents here, and we'll get them real close. Then we'll go ahead and hit them with some skim coat and then primer. We'll probably prime first, or at least throw some DTM primer on and get everything ready to go. So there's a few other little dings and scratches around here. There's a little pucker here. There's one over here as well. This part of the panel actually has a little bit of a bend to it, so I've got to bring it out a little bit. And just lots of work, nothing big, no big patches to replace except for this little spot here. So that's kind of nice. Maybe I'll start working on this first. Who knows? So for those of you wearing headphones, you've kind of been warned. I might have the grinder out, may have a hammer out. So just be warned. Alrighty, so you've seen me whacking away at this thing for the last couple minutes, however long your time lapse lasts, and yep, I'm beating the snot out of the metal, but it's thick metal, it's old, it's not going anywhere, it's really forgiving. So if this was a newer car, I would be definitely a little lighter in the love taps than beating away on it here. So just going by feel, I got most of this out, worked out down here too. We still have this little bend here to work with, and I'll try and lean on that once we've flipped it over, probably set it on the ground and just apply pressure from the top and try and straighten it out. But let's flip it over. Now, if we take a look here, I've still got a little bit of a crease here. Always gonna have a little bit of a crease here, but the big indentation is gone. Here it is nearly all gone. Here you can see where the crease in the actual metal was, like a scrape. But in terms of smoothness, it's a lot better, a little bit of high side. And I can go through and now tap from the top with the dolly below, where I've got a little better curve, and tap that down where it should be. Hit it with some skim coat, will be good. Same thing here. This crease here is darn near gone. I can feel a little dimple right there, which I knew because that's behind the little fold in the panel around the back side. But this crease here is nearly gone. There's one down here somewhere too. Can barely feel anything other than the roughness of the panel. So, you know, this needs a little tap down, but this just needs a little skim. These just need a little skim once, yeah, a little skim. And then up here, a little tap right here, and then I can skim all this. This area here is the only thing I'm going to set it down on the ground, kind of step or put some pressure right here to try and kink it back and hammer it and see what that gets us. Then we can go ahead and weld our patch in here. I want to get that done before I go ahead and do anything with filler, just because. So I'm going to do a little more fiddling around here, and we'll come back to get that patch put in. Alrighty, folks, we are back, and I did a little work off camera just to try and get some of the dents pounded out before, or the creases pounded out before the kids went to bed. So they are now in bed for the evening, and I've had a little time out here in the garage by myself. So here's what I did. I took the body dolly and the hammer and ran over this crease here. That's almost gone. A few little imperfections still, mainly because of this crease that was in the metal. That's going to be really tough to get out, but we can skim that. And this area here that was kind of bent, I pretty much put it on the ground and kneeled on it right here. Bent that kink out of it, and then I hit it with the hammer. Try to work this angle around, and that fell in place very well. I also went along the bottom edge of here and got these all straightened out because they were all kind of kitty-wampus and bent around. The big deal though was these front creases here. This is almost don't need anything on this at all. There's a little high spot here I've got to tap back down. And then this big crease went along this whole way, is far better than it was. There's still going to be a little bit of a crease here just because the metal is gouged a little bit. But this big area here that was really caved in, you can see my hammer marks on here, and it is really, really improved. So I'm happy with that. Again, just this little spot here to tap down. And what I want to do now is go ahead and cut this area out and put in a patch. So I want to avoid having to cut this whole area out with a full patch panel. My goal is to go down here to this edge and then go up, over, and then hopefully an angle. Probably going to be a little bit of a challenge with my angle grinder. So we'll see how we can do that the best. Probably going to be cutting over, angling, and then up. I just want to get to some thick metal because this stuff I can just, push right through. So that is my course of action right now. I'm going to measure this out and get it cut out. So my thinking is if I can get this cut out in one big piece, I can take that as a template onto my new piece of sheet metal that I'm going to weld in. I hope I don't have to get a whole lot closer to this, but maybe just to be sure, I'll come down here, halfway down, and then make our cut here. This area here might be a little sketchy, but we'll see what we can do. If I have to, I'll cut it and roll it all the way down around here. I don't want to, but we'll see. Alrighty, we've got our template here. I'm going to go ahead and trace this onto our new steel and get that cut out. Alrighty, I've gone ahead and cut my patch plate, and it's a pretty good fit. So I can get some decent butt welds along there. So aside from this top left corner here, it's a really good fit. So what I'm going to do is grab my little butt clamps and get those fit in here, maybe a magnet or two, and then tack it in towards the top, because I'm going to have to roll it just a hair, and I might do that before I put it in. You can see about halfway down where my thumb is, a little bit of contour in the body, and I don't have an English wheel or anything like that. I just have to go ahead and manually roll it a little bit by hand. Alright, it wasn't too big of a deal. I actually put it in my vise and just gave it some taps and some pushes with my hands, and the contour is pretty good. I think as I get it around and suck it in with these clamps, it'll work for me. So let's see here. I got these from the Secret Santa, aka the brother-in-law, last year for Christmas, and first time I've had to use them. So I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to get me a magnet to start with to hold it in place, so I can fit a couple of these butt clamps in. These things here are actually pretty slick. There's just a chunk of metal that goes in, a key in the bottom. Tighten it up, it holds your pieces of metal together. So, got a little room here, I can sneak one in. Little trick here to pinpoint an area. Set one hammer here and the other one tap it with. You can push this tip down without hitting it with your big hammer head or missing with your little point. All right, I like how that feels. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my welder. Alrighty, well that's all I'm gonna do for getting that tacked in place tonight, because what I want to do before I go much farther is get a run of filler or glaze over some of these bigger scratches so I can let that set overnight, harden up for sure, and come back tomorrow for me, same day for you of course, but come back and get that sanded down. And then while we're doing that, I'll work on stitch welding around this hatch, and hopefully I can probably take this, and I'll probably want to move this around a little bit just so I can get a good tack in there. But then I'll go ahead and stitch around this. That'll take a while to get everything welded in, because you don't want to just make one big bead here, because this is thinner metal and it will warp and it'll end up burning through because everything gets so hot and you'll have a giant mess. So the technique for stitch welding is just to hit a spot, and keep going around until everything is filled in. Then you can grind her down, put in any filler you need, skim it, whatever, prime it. So that's what we're gonna do. Hey everybody, we are back, and let that filler dry overnight. You can see we've got good old slathering of it on here, up here where this crease was, and then up front. What I want to do now is go ahead and get this area stitch welded in, let it cool down, and then I'm going to go ahead and get some filler in here once it's ground down, here and here. Then we'll come back and get everything sanded down and see if we have any other places that we need to reapply, or if we can go ahead and throw some of our dolphin glaze on here and hopefully finish this panel and call it good. So let's go ahead and get our welder fired up. Alrighty, so we took our first patch here at stitch welding, and I didn't quite follow the process all the way around, but I know I'm gonna have a few little pinholes to go back and fix anyways. So you can see overall, if I get you in a little closer, I've gone and made a good first pass around here. So now I'm gonna take my flap wheel and grind this down. After all, I'm a better grinder than a welder, and see what we've got left for pinholes and see how this contour looks. Typically, if you're getting things too hot, you'll either burn through like I did in a few spots. But again, we've also got old rusty metal. I can see a pinhole here right away. But you can hear it kind of ding and ting when it warps. And I didn't hear much of that when I was welding. So I think I've got it. Excuse me, I think I've got the welder dialed in pretty well. Had to turn down the heat just a hair. But we'll go ahead and put that flap disc on there and see what it looks like. Alrighty, overall not too bad. You can see I've got a few little holes in here. Tough to see. I'll have to put a flashlight up from the bottom to see through it. Pretty much, it looks pretty smooth. This bottom edge turned out pretty well. A little bit of a ridge here, but I've also created a little bit of a valley. So when we throw in our skim coat, that'll cover up just perfectly. And you know, overall it looks pretty good. A little bit of a ridge here. I'll take a look at that. But by and large, I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of these little tiny pinholes, do a final grind down on this, and I believe we'll be able to get this area ready for filler. Alrighty folks, we've let our filler dry for a while here, and go ahead and hit it up with our linear sanding blocks. We've got some 40 grit on here just to knock down the high stuff real quick. Then we'll come back with some 80 grit, and from there see where we need to fill in any low spots that may have popped up. and go from there. All right, everybody, we are back. We spent a lot of time sanding today with the linear blocks here, and they're pretty good, I'll tell you that. You saw I caked on the filler a little heavy, and I've gone back through here with 40 and 80 and pretty much gotten pretty good contour in everything that I can find. A few high spots I've tapped down, have to go back and hit with some skim. Up here, a little bit of low spot here. I kind of expected I'd have at least one in here, just to the breadth of the damage I had to deal with. But that's back here. This long crease you can see has been filled in. It pretty much went all the way through here. You can see we've got filler in there. Not much compared to what we started with, but if you look down the line now, you don't really see any imperfections anymore. So that is what I'm looking to see. This dent here got cleared up. A little bit more sanding, of course, to do everything. Gonna hit with some guide coat and get down to the 120 and then leave it for prime. But this big area back here, you can see this is where we put that fill panel in, and that's looking good. Again, just hit with the 40. And you can see it just starting to shine through in a few spots, but not worried about that. And again, a few high spots I found I've tapped down or run those over with some skim again. Big issue I found is this area right here. I'm not sure from age or from just being out of true a little bit. Oops, it actually flexes and pops back up. So it did this before it came off the car. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just take a little strip, maybe 3/4 inch wide, and run it along here, maybe up in this area here, to help strengthen this, and hopefully it won't flex me, because I can't sand it right now like this. I'll try and hit it with the block, and it just puckers down on me. You can see it. Hopefully now you can see it. And pops right back out. So I've tried to curve this area out a little bit more, and I succeeded in that mostly. It used to be this whole inner area here would cave in on me, and now it's just a little area here. So I'm gonna put, I think, just a little strip in there to stiffen it up. Once, the car back on the car, it's behind some coating. You'll never know it's there, and we'll be just fine for that. But I need to run out to the parts store tomorrow and pick up some material that I can weld that on there. Then we'll be able to keep going on this part here. But by and large, this panel is coming along really nicely. It's been probably got 3 to 4 hours of sanding on this one alone here. Thankfully, the passenger side is not nearly as dinged up as this one was. There's a few little scratches on it and puckers, but of course you always find more than you expected when you start putting filler on there and some skim coats. So we're gonna go ahead and get this panel stiffened up on the back side, and then keep going ahead and sanding down our 40 and 80 grit. We'll come back, hit it with some of that U-Pull Dolphin glaze, knock it off with the 120, and then that should be ready for primer. Now you see we've got our Challenger panels over there, fenders as well. So I'm hoping to get all 4 of these, weather pending still, get all 4 of these panels pretty well set so I can shoot 3 decent coats of our primer on there. Start with that DTM primer, then a couple coats of regular primer on there, and get that built up. Then we can hit our guide coat and start sanding and see where we've got more spots to fix. But for now, today it was close to 70 degrees outside, which is weird. We're looking, I think, for mid 30s, high 40s, or mid 30s, high 30s this week, and rain later on. So our timing again is going to be weather dependent, what we can do. Thankfully, our garage is heated back here. We got a heated garage, so we will see what the weather lets us do. Alrighty folks, we are back, and I've spent some more time, actually a lot of time off camera, going through and sanding down the driver's side fender to start with for sure, and also in this little segment here, fiddling with the color settings in the GoPros. We'll see if they turn out a little better, a little more balanced, not so saturated, and I guess if I like it, I'll keep doing it, and if not, you'll never notice, except for this little clip. Anyways, the passenger fender is in really good shape compared to the driver's side. There's a little dent right here I've got to pound back down. Well, this kind of puckered up. And we've got a little bit of our rust right down here under our chrome. So we'll go ahead and cut this out, make another patch panel, pound that back straight where it should. Otherwise, the rest of the panel's in great shape, except for there is one little ding, a little pock mark right up here. And I went and threw some glaze on here because it's not even deep enough to warrant any fill. So we're gonna get that cleaned up. And over here in the pile of parts, taking another stab at the driver's fender. Got a little skim coat here and here. I did end up putting a 3/4 inch plate behind here, bar, to stiffen this up so it no longer puckers when I push on it. And that upset the filler in here, so I ground nearly all of this down, started over. And the same in here too, since this was actually puckered down and concave when I put the filler on it. I had about a 1/4 inch of filler in there, which you don't want. So took all that off again, skimmed this back over, and we're good to go there. So we're gonna go ahead and do a bunch of sanding. And for your sanity, I'm only gonna go over this little chunk right here, and then we'll work on this patch right here. So let's just get to it. Alrighty, so you saw us get that panel in there. The bottom edge is a little bigger gap than I wanted it to be. Top edge is about perfect. I'm sure I could have split the difference, but at the end of the day, didn't really want to cut a new panel out of there, and it all welded up anyways just fine. So you can see here the top here, the stitch welds look pretty good. And with the bigger gaps where it's kind of a mess, but that's why they make grinders. So that's what I'm going to do. And we'll come back. We'll get it ready to put some filler on and keep moving around forward. All right, well, we've got this panel, I think, pretty well squared away for the first round. We got this little divot up here in the front, skimmed over, wasn't deep enough for a round of filler, just a little bit of skim on there. I'll take a look at this area probably once I get it primed. I think it's going to need just a little dab right there, but that's not worth mixing up another bunch of stuff because I forgot about it and didn't have enough after I did that. Also, we got the patch in, some DTM primer under it, and a layer of filler on it. So we're going to let this dry. We're going to let that dry. And I'm going to go pick up the kids from daycare. So we'll come back later tonight for me and just like this for you. But hopefully we'll get these two panels, these two fenders sanded down, ready for primer. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. We have been working on sanding for what seems like days. Actually, it's probably been 3 or 4 evenings, probably 7, 8, 10 hours into sanding the two front fenders, and here's what we've come up with. So here's our driver's side fender, and I could have kept working on this for hours and hours. But I think once I get a few coats of primer on, that's really going to help. I took care of the big gouge that was in here and worked that out quite a bit. I've got about 3 or 4 passes, light passes of fill and glaze on here. Then just some other spots that I found while going over sanding. Just little indentations. Our big patch panel down here filled in nicely. There's a gouge in here I didn't even see originally, so nice to get that fixed. Dent over here, a little gouge right here that I didn't see originally either. And if we go over here to our passenger fender, I knew about this one long ago. Probably saw me fixing that very early on in this project. And as the paint came off, found damage down here, damage here. And then of course we knew about this rust area down here, but I didn't know about this little ding here. So again, a couple hours, maybe 2-3 hours working on this panel alone. But by and large, the driver's side was a massive undertaking. So now it is time to clean this mess up along with the rest of this mess and get ready for priming these two fenders. So quick review with this. Yeah, there's a lot of sanding, a lot of filling, a lot of sanding, a lot of sanding. My arms hurt. And I did use a combination of both my soft sanders and the linear blocking tools as well. Both of them very good in their own respect. There are some contours right up in here, for example, where the blocking tools, their stiffness just did not help. But the soft sanders and their ability to kind of work around some of these contours came in really handy. Especially right up in here. There's a little bit of a curve in here, and the blocking tools just kept scraping this off. So went back to the soft sanders, worked beautifully. Same for up here. There's too many compound curves to go ahead and use a flat or fairly rigid device, at least so far with my limited experience with those tools. But so far, linear block tools have worked great. Soft sanders that I've had for a year, those also have come in very handy. And we're just going to go ahead and get these in primer. Like I said, we'll come back. We're going to shoot, I think, 3 coats of primer on them, hit a little bit of guide coat, go from there. And we've got, I know we have 3 coats of primer and guide coat on the 52 doors. So I'm going to try and match that with these fenders. And then once we get everything together, kind of our final hurrah before paint, I'm going to throw a coat of sealant on there. to lock everything in. But I've been looking at the 52 doors all summer down in the shop. It's been hot, it's been cold, it's been humid, it's been dry, they've been rained on and wet and dripped on. So far those are holding up excellent, and I have no doubt that these will do the same as well. So for now, that's gonna do it for us. We're gonna come back, like I said, next video on the 52, getting the doors primed up and just keep working through that. We've got the rocker panels after that. Then maybe I can work on priming the body, or the rest of it, what's left of it. And I will be ready to go start kind of reassembling stuff, unless I decide to pull out the engine. Who knows? But again, thanks for watching. If you haven't out yet, hit that subscribe button below. Like the video, share it on social media, and be sure to check our next video on the 52. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.